All right. Woo, woo, woo. Breaking news from the Wake and Jake desk, as we like to do when we can. We normally run pretty crazy schedules, but we got a breaking trade. Teoscar Hernandez. Blue Jays stud, man. Blue Jays stud, Teoscar Hernandez, is getting traded to the Seattle Mariners. For Eric Swanson, who had a really breakout season as a reliever for them. And actually, it's kind of one of the complaints that he didn't get used more. When I say really breakout, 57 games, a 1.68 ERA, 53.2 innings, 70 punchies. All of those are, elite stuff. He is 29 years old, basically in his prime. You get a few years of service time from him. He had a good year as a reliever the year before. As well. Toronto, that bullpen has never been full-blown scary. They've normally had one or two guys back there. Swanson adds a big dude for them. They get a prospect, too. The kid was born in Slovakia, Mako, and he was raised in Canada. So, hey, if he makes it to the majors, really cool stuff. But let's focus on what we have for now.
Seems to have a good shot to get there at some point. Top 10 prospect with Seattle. Probably bumps up a little.
Be a stud, kid. I love Slovakian
Happy for
baseball.
You. Young, lefty, cool.
Let's do the Mariners side because that's easiest of this. They get Teoscar Hernandez, Mitch Haniger, who'd been really good for them, hurt for a chunk of last year. Teoscar Hernandez will fill in that slot. It will be essentially a one-year deal for him. He will enter free agency after next year. So that's why the price may be a little surprising on paper. Basically, you're going to get Teoscar Hernandez for 1 year, 13, 14 mil. We're waiting on the ARB numbers. I very much like Teoscar Hernandez. He has twice won Silver Slugger awards. 2020, shortened season, I know. But he followed it up the next year, 2021, by also winning the Silver Slugger. He has a career 121 OPS plus. The past couple years have been higher than that, a 132 OPS plus. He is a threat. His bat is violent. Over the last 3 seasons, he's averaging 283, 333, and 852 OPS. My dude mashes. And he's a guy you don't think a lot about with Toronto. But you should. I think as a Yankee fan that plays them a lot, he's consistently a threat when he's in there. I know the Yankees played him a couple times that he was injured, and it was notable that he was out of the lineup. You felt that.
They benefited from that this year.
For Seattle, it's kind of plug and play. 1 year, they're trading from their depth in their pitching, especially Swanson, who, I think he's a guy they wanted to work out, and he did work out. But you're trading your third, fourth guy in your bullpen for a guy who's going to be a starting corner outfielder for you every day next year in a year that you're hoping to contend. And for what Mitch Haniger was for you last year, Teoscar is an upgrade. You don't have to bid against other free agents. You know what you're getting that 1 year. Put him in the lineup. And
Swanson traded at the peak of his value. 3 years left on him. He's not going to do what he did last year again, and that's fine.
Hey, for Seattle, they get a dude in their lineup. They need more dudes. He can be that guy. He passes the vibe check there, a little swaggy. Some of the things that we have that are shots fired to Toronto, they talk the talk for sure, and they haven't fully walked the walk yet. Teoscar feels like a guy that kind of walked the walk for them. Silver Slugger awards, back-to-back years. Like he was a dude for them. He goes to Seattle. And if they could get Jesse Winker back to being Jesse Winker, I wonder what really happened there this year. Julio Rodriguez, Ty France. We'll see what else Seattle has up their sleeve. But for them, from the fan perspective, this is a massive win of a trade. You traded a depth reliever for a Silver Slugger outfielder. That's a win for them. They still have Sewald, Munoz, Castillo. Matt Brash is back there for now. Seattle's going to be fine in their bullpen.
It was a position of depth.
For the Blue Jays, there's some more layers to this. They get a cheap reliever who's also who's in his prime that can pitch an eighth inning for you and you can feel confident. We like that. Good for them. I think they needed more depth back there, and with, Fangraphs already updated it. Romano, Jimmy Garcia, Swanson, Bass, Meza, Simber. You can really figure things out back there. So they add another piece to their bullpen. They're constantly have been working on that. Good for them. Teoscar Hernandez. Everything I said I liked about him, he'd done for the Blue Jays, and he'd been consistent. And having that consistent 280, 800-plus OPS guy in the middle of your lineup, those don't grow on trees. So me and BBD started percolating, because what is this? Because we've heard different rumors out of Toronto. They're so right-handed.
Right now, their Fangraphs roster, only righties. Lefties on the bench.
Kevin Biggio's still around. They don't have him as a starter right now.
And the other two lefties on their bench, not in my book.
Raymond Tapia was DFA'd, so I don't think you're banking on him. So they're all righty. So what does this mean to the Blue Jays? That they do have money. Their fan base will be the first to tell you that. I think their fan base has loftier goals for their money than sometimes what they do. That being said, they can make impact moves in free agency. They shouldn't be viewed as, a lower tier or even a mid-tier team. I think they're, top 10 money-wise in what they're going to attack and attract free agents. What I think Blue Jays fans miss is that telling a player to come to Canada and there's high taxes up there and it's a different country, that's a big ask. I think you do have to outbid to get your George Springers, to get your Hyun-Jin Ryus, and they did, and it's working for them. In a way, they're winning.
Most ties don't go their way.
Right. Yes, they're not getting any ties go to the runner. So, what are we doing here? They have their two catchers, Kirk, Danny Jansen. Danny Jansen hit last year. We've heard rumors they're going to trade there. I don't know what's going to happen there. Let's see. Jeff Passan tweeting about it. Yeah, just talking about how good their bullpen is. Cool. Something's going to happen with the catcher still, we think. If not, I think that's less of a priority than we think. Having Danny Jansen and Alejandro Kirk, let that settle out. And Danny Jansen, if this was his breakout, I don't know. I would be a little, I don't want to say shocked.
Yeah.
For a while, he wasn't a good hitter. He hit last year. If they're going to trade from a strength, that's what I just complimented Seattle on. I wouldn't hate if they do that. I have no idea what that trade could be. It could be pitching. Is it Kirk? Is it Jansen? I have no clue. So I'm not gonna go there. What we do know, they just traded Teoscar Hernandez, which means they'll need outfield help. Their current outfield is listed as George Springer, Lourdes Gurriel, and Whit Merrifield.
And that's with Jansen occupying a DH spot.
Right. Kevin Biggio and George Springer, he's not playing everyday center field. We know they like to move him over to right late in games when they can. One of the lefty outfielders will be going to Toronto. And we have options. So let me start with Andrew Benintendi. I didn't think he was going to be an option for the Yankees to bring back. After looking at the free agents, I totally do. And I've been saying that I think he's going to get I think it's how I ended with Foolish Baseball, that Andrew Benintendi is going to get paid more than you think. He is going to have a lot of job offers because he plays defense, and he had a really nice year, and there's not a lot of corner outfielders, and he's still 28 years old. Andrew Benintendi is in play for the Toronto Blue Jays. Brandon Nimmo, an interesting free agency that hasn't been talked about. The guy puts up stats. He played a really nice center field. Could Brandon Nimmo be in play for the Toronto Blue Jays? I absolutely think so. What I just said about Springer, could you kind of share those guys' time in center field if you need to? I think Brandon Nimmo is very much in play. And think of that Toronto thing we just talked about. And I don't want this to be shots fired at Brandon Nimmo because it's complimentary. Brandon Nimmo is really good. But when we talk about the top-tier free agents, we haven't talked about Brandon Nimmo a ton. Just the shortstops. you view them in a different game changer wise, and maybe it's unfair to Brandon Nimmo. You don't view him as the other top free agents. You view him as really good, and he can help your team, but he doesn't have kind of the wow factor, and maybe that's just...
I feel like every time the conversation's gotten approached, it's just been like, oh, Brandon Nimmo's by far the best free agent. He'll get 5 for $100, and yeah.
Even, Judge, Dansby, Turner, Bogarts, Correa, even Wilson Contreras, what he can do from the catcher position, Rizzo, Brandon Nimmo, the Wilson Contreras, Rizzo, Nimmo's more with those guys
by vibe
than the elite shortstops and Judge. And I do with that what you want. Maybe that's unfair. I don't know. Maybe Nimmo is kind of the line between those. Does that feel like a guy that Toronto could give the extra year for? And he could be their lefty to add? I think that's very much in play. The other guy that's on the table, and think about the trade again. Teoscar goes to Seattle. He was going to make about $14 million this year. Could Toronto take a flyer on Michael Conforto? We've wondered what's going on with him. Could you pay him a 1-year deal for less than Teoscar, add a lefty, and maybe you get that kind of contribution? I don't know. The thing that BBD stumbled into that also very much in play, Michael Brantley, Dr. Smooth. He is a free agent. Right now, Danny Jansen listed as your DH. I think Michael Brantley hitting 2-hole or 5-hole could be one of the lefties they'd like to add. Could it be Brantley and Conforto and one of them clicks? And BBD pointed out, Brantley to Toronto was a thing last year. People were tweeting about it. They thought it was done.
2 seasons ago, like it was reported.
2 seasons ago.
It was reported he agreed to a 3-year deal there, and then he took 2 for 30 something with Houston. Like, he got pump faked.
So we know they like him. One, if not 2 of those guys I just mentioned will be going to Toronto. And I think there's going to be a big trade. I don't know who it is. I don't know what it's about. Toronto will be in the mix because kind of like we talked about with Seattle getting Teoscar for 1 year, you know what you're getting. That's the deal. Instead of having to bid against teams in free agency, you go out and you know what you're getting at the trade deadline. Toronto having to outbid someone for a Springer or Ryu or Nimmo, they don't have to do that in a trade. You just have to trade the equal sum of the parts of what the team is asking for. So I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and get a Nimmo or they get a Brantley. They're going to make an impact trade, and I think they know they need to be more lefty. So I don't know if it's trading from the catchers. I don't know if it's trading one of their top prospects. But the Blue Jays have put their offseason in motion. They also have their top prospect, Gabriel Moreno, who's a catcher. So I wonder if they'll be willing to trade Kirk. Because, man, a young catcher that can hit like that, I don't know. And then you've got to add a lefty somewhere else. So I don't know if adding a Conforto and Brantley, is that enough? I don't think so. Nimmo and Brantley? That kind of feels right. Move Springer to right field, have Brantley DH. That would make that lineup really tough. Really, really tough. Man, I would kind of like that for Toronto. So I think Seattle, you say it's an easy win. You turn Swanson into something. You trade at peak value. You get a silver slugger outfielder for a reliever. Bong. I think Seattle, it's TBD, but a first step has been put in motion that this offseason is now on for them. The Blue Jays did not win a playoff game last year. They fired their manager. You just traded a guy who was a silver slugger winner for a reliever. You better be improving in other places. Because, the expectations are high. And if next season goes down the tubes for Toronto, whether that's not winning the division, not winning a playoff game, not making the playoffs, whatever it is, then the other guys are next, right? Then you're looking at Bichette. You're looking at Guerrero. I think Matty Chapman.
I think he'll be a free agent.
I think he's coming up on free agency. So you're talking about the core of this Blue Jays team. really getting shooken up if next year is not the year.
Realistically, it would be like everyone but Vladdy, but yeah, and Springer's locked.
Well,
but
if Vladdy doesn't agree to the extension,
True.
what do we just see with Soto, right? Like
it can happen.
It could happen. So let's
actively pursuing.
Toronto, you hope this is the start of what leads to a busy offseason. For Seattle, you just cured one of your biggest problems. Mitch Haniger was a free agent, and I never use them, but it always makes me laugh when they pop up. Know how Baseball Reference has those similarity scores, and it's just like similar batters through this age, and similar for Teoscar Hernandez, it's Mitch Haniger. Most similar. So Toronto or Seattle, they kind of know what they like. Oh, similar.
You at least plugged the hole.
Similar batters through age 29. Pump these names into my veins. Carlos Quinton, Cespedes, Chris Davis, Jay Buhner, Jay Gibbons, Reggie Sanders, Trot Nixon. Mark Trumbo even snuck in there. So, love it for Seattle. Probably the start for Toronto. Little breaking news. Beep, beep, beep. See you guys. Love you. Not sure what order all this happened in, but maybe there's more.
Love.